Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. We're doing a Q&A about SEM for Higher Education. It's a good panel webinar. A couple of housekeeping things. First, thank you so much for those of you who signed up and submitted your questions to us during your sign-up. We had some really, really great questions, and we've compiled those into the top 12 that we're going to answer today, as well as leave some time at the end for some on-the-fly questions that you guys might have as we go along. We also have a hashtag, so we see here the SEM Higher Ed. So if you're on Twitter or on any of those other social media places, you can ask your questions there too. We'll keep an eye out for those. Or else use the Q&A within the webinar. We are recording this session too, very common question. So we'll have this posted on our website in case there's something that you missed. You have full access to it, as well as giving you an email when we're done. So let's get going. First, let me introduce our panel. We have myself, Becky Bartman, Senior Digital Strategist here, and I'm also pleased to introduce Kaylee and Michael, who both are AdWords certified and have over 5 years of AdWords history. So let's jump into the questions.
So why is SEM for Higher Education important? Paid media campaigns can often bring you more immediate target traffic right away than organic results can when using an effective campaign strategy. With this increase in traffic, you can often have more data to analyze in deciding what your website does and doesn't do well. Paid media ads are typically more prominently placed on the search engine results, so typically they would grab a user's attention more often and more frequently. This prominent placement could lead to more impressions, which works great as a branding tool. With so many schools doing SEM, it's important to be on there to stay competitive. Many of the advertising channels offer enhanced reporting features so you can get an accurate picture of your ROI and help you make future marketing decisions. So let's get into the questions. Question 1, what are some different examples of digital marketing campaigns? You guys are all probably familiar with these. Google being the most popular, many schools typically start off with this and then move into other advertising channels. Google Display is a huge network, kind of capturing about 90% of the internet traffic. Bing, a huge search network as well. Still very popular experience, and we've seen a lot of conversions from that. Facebook, largest social media website, many different ad targeting options make it a great branding tool. LinkedIn, about 250 million active users a month. Those users are typically focused on furthering their education, so promoting those types of programs is great. Twitter and YouTube becoming more and more popular for their unique ad formats as well as their unique targeting options. So you're probably thinking, what digital advertising is best for my institution? You want to think about who is your target audience. Are you looking to promote brand awareness or generate leads? What kind of budget are you working with? What is the goal of your advertising? And how does your target audience typically find you? Google and Bing are a great way to capture search traffic. If your program keywords are frequently searched, it's a great place to be. Facebook and LinkedIn, you're really capturing your target audience, kind of really focusing on those unique characteristics about your student and using those variety of target options to reach them. Google and Bing combined, they're the largest search network out there. Typically, because the user is already searching on there for the program, you have a higher chance of converting them into a lead. And if you're big into using Google Analytics, the integration between Google AdWords and Analytics can really give you more in-depth reporting. Some things that I would say negatives about Google is due to high competition, it can get very expensive, and also the learning curve can be challenging, so it's important to get Google AdWords certified. But basically, we think that using these are great for any program a user would be searching online for. Facebook, again, it's the largest social media website. We typically see longer user sessions, so great for building brand awareness due to high use. They offer many unique targeting options. You can target by interest, age, gender, what school the person's attending, which can be great. And peer influence is a big thing. We've all seen posts where it says, you know, your friend Andrew likes this school. So it's great promoting programs where peer influence is a great factor. Click-through rate can be a lot lower due to all the noise and distractions on Facebook, but overall it's great for branding, for brand awareness and promoting undergrad programs. LinkedIn is the largest social professional network. Typically, users' common goal is professional growth. Due to the high use, we typically see it as a great branding tool. Again, it has many unique targeting options like Facebook. Overall, clicks are harder to come by from our experience, and it kind of can take some more time managing the account, but we do think it's a great way to market those professional and adult education programs. Next question, should I be advertising on Google's display network? This is a question we get all the time. You see a larger amount of impressions on the Google Display Network compared to Google Search Network, just because ads are typically appearing on websites that relate to your keywords and not just when people are searching. Due to high amount of impressions, this is great for building brand awareness. Cost per clicks tend to be a lot lower on the Display Network than the Search Network, which is a huge reason why people like to test it out. There's a variety of options for ad design, sizes. You can upload your own, making it very customized. And from our experience, we've seen display remarketing ad campaigns be very effective for lead generation. Some cons, we typically see lower click-through rates and lower quality of traffic, just because those users aren't necessarily searching directly for you. They are just kind of browsing on websites that might relate to your keywords. The initial setup time can take a lot longer and cost more if you plan to design high-quality display ads. And you also have less control over who sees your ads due to targeting option limitations. Overall, it really depends on your institution's goal. If you're looking to generate leads, I would say Search Network maybe combined with a display remarketing campaign is the best way to go. But if you're really looking just to promote your brand, the Display Network is a great way to do that. Next question. How do I improve the quality score of my keywords? AdWords defines quality score as a measurement of how relevant your ads, keywords, and landing page are to a person seeing your ad. Higher quality scores can lead to lower prices and better ad positions. You'll see that the click-through rate is the biggest factor when it comes to quality score, followed by the relevancy of your keywords and ads to your landing page, then the quality of your landing page. So how do you improve quality score? Split keywords into smaller, more specific ad groups and create specific ad copy that is relevant to those keywords. For example, say you're trying to promote an MBA program. You might have keywords such as online MBA, part-time MBA. You really want to separate those keywords out into themed ad groups and create ad text that really relates to those. This should help increase your click-through rate significantly. Edit or replace ads that have low click-through rate. Good to do probably about once a month. Go in there, see what ads aren't performing, and swap them out for new ads. Add site link or other Google extension features such as location, phone, Google+. This really helps your ad stand out, which can increase your click-through rate as well. Implement a great negative keyword list. Under keywords, go to details and look at all search terms to see what searches have triggered your ads and kind of see what things maybe aren't the best things and add negative keywords based on that. Test out different keyword match types. We've seen phrase and exact match tend to have a much higher click-through rate than broad. I would say steer clear of broad match keywords unless you are really having a difficult time finding traffic. And lastly, develop the keywords and ad text based on the landing page copy or vice versa. The relevancy of this is a huge factor in quality scores, so it's important to pay attention to that. How do I streamline my digital marketing campaign with a lean staff? This is also a question we get a lot. One thing is you want to set things up right from the start. Have someone that is experienced and is Google AdWords certified, create a great campaign strategy, and build a program accordingly. Making smaller optimization changes down the road is much easier than making huge changes or having to start from scratch. Utilize automation features in AdWords. Google AdWords has some automatic bidding options that can kind of bid to make you maximize your clicks. And then also if you have conversion tracking turned on, you'll want to implement enhanced bidding where you're kind of bidding more aggressively on those keywords that have converted before. Next, use AdWords Editor as much as possible. It's much easier to view everything as a whole and make changes more quickly. And lastly, WordStream 20-minute PPC workweek. This is a great tool if, say, I think everyone's busy traveling or you have meetings with the week, finding that 20 minutes to really kind of edit those key things that will help your campaign perform.
All right, everybody. This is Michael, and the question is, how do I optimize my campaign for more quality leads? Which is a great question. First thing is, you got to get inside your prospects' heads. Utilize a persona. A lot of people use marketing personas. That's going to be your best bet. Understanding what motivates your prospects, who they are. That's the first step. Second step is pay attention to your data. So especially conversions. The conversions are really indicative of a quality lead. Obviously, that's what you want. You want a conversion. So paying attention to what drives that is immensely important to optimizing your campaign. If you're using AdWords to get the most conversions, you can consider implementing an enhanced CPC, which Haley had just touched on, where that will kind of bid where the greatest propensity to convert will be. Or you can do a CPA, cost per acquisition, type of payment model, which is you basically put an amount you're willing to pay for a conversion, for an acquisition. So those are two really neat features you can use in AdWords. And then if you have analytics hooked up, you should dig deeper on that pay-per-click traffic. Look at their behavior on your website. What are they doing? Are they bouncing right away? Are they spending time? Are they going to different pages that would indicate interest? You can really get a good handle on that just by using your Google Analytics or whatever analytics system you use. Also, AdWords has a search term report, which you can look at if you have broad matches, queries that match the clicks and conversions. And so you just kind of get some ideas from that and implement those into your campaigns. It's really easy to do. You can just add it right from there. And then also, another thing with AdWords is a campaign experiment. So you can do A/B testing. You could test out different landing pages. You could test out different copy and just use those results to optimize continually. And you should be optimizing continually. Okay, so the next question is, how do I make sense of my results? Another great question. It can often be difficult to do when there's a lot of data coming in on all these systems. But the number one thing is you should have a clear initial goal. So once you have that clear initial goal, you'll be able to tie results specifically to that. Do you want to build brand awareness? Well, for instance, you would look at impressions. Are you getting a lot of impressions at great places? So that would be a clear result you could use to analyze. But you also want to start small. As I mentioned, there's a ton of data coming in on these. So don't have 200 ads and 1,000 keywords, which actually people have done. So you want to start small. You want to have a small group and understand what's working, what's not working. And that's the best way. And just go out bit by bit and keep optimizing, and you'll be able to understand your results. What tools are out there to find the best keyword for my campaign? Well, Google has AdWords Keyword Planner, and that's a great tool, probably the most widely used tool for that. There's a paid version called WordStream, which some people like too. You can go to their website and kind of check that out. You can look at Google Analytics data. There's been some changes in the way Google's algorithm works, so you're not going to see as many organic search terms coming in on that, but you know, you'll have pieces to look at. You can also do a neat thing is to type in searches into Google, and you can look at autocomplete suggestions. So that can kind of give you another idea. Also, not on the slide, but you could also consider looking at some SEO tools. And like I said, there's been some changes with Google, but you could pay attention to Bing or other search engine queries if those tools allow you to see them and gather ideas that way. Okay, so what are some higher education industry averages and benchmarks for SEM? So this is kind of a difficult question because every program is radically different. Some people say they have industry averages and benchmarks, and I don't know, I've not seen any that have convinced me. But here's some good kind of general numbers that you can kind of guide your campaign with. 1% click-through rates, you're doing pretty well. Again, it depends on certain on what programs you're advertising on. 3 to 4% conversion rate, maybe even a little bit low on that, but that's you're doing pretty good if you have that. Cost per leads can range from $100 to $400, you know, higher or lower. This is really a wishy-washy answer, but the bottom line is every program is different. It depends. So just understand, if you're getting conversions, that's good. If you're feeling like you're getting a good cost per lead based upon what your marketing department would determine that should be, you're doing good. So kind of look internally for that a little bit. Okay, can you help me understand the bidding process in AdWords? Okay, so what happens is you search on Google, and that search will trigger a bidding war. There's a bunch of advertisers trying to have their ads pop up on that search query. So the positions of those ads are determined by an ad rank. And what ad rank is just simply your quality score times your bid. So keep in mind, your max CPC, that's not necessarily what you're going to pay. That's how much you're willing to pay. So it's different there. You're probably not going to even hit that, depending on circumstances, but oftentimes you won't. The highest bid doesn't always win the best position. So if your quality score is actually better than your competitor who bids higher than you, you could still have a higher ad rank. So the formula for what you pay in the bidding process is the ad rank of the person below you divided by your quality score plus 1 cent. So you kind of pay 1 cent over what it would take to beat that person.
Thanks, Michael. This is Becky again, guys. Don't forget you can send in your questions through Twitter, and we're going to look at those all at the end. All right, so number 11, how do we write effective ad text? Hopefully this is one of those things that you guys are people. You talk to people. You're not writing for computers. So always think about the fact that you're actually writing to people on the other end, right? So no generic ad copy. Make sure that you're actually tailoring to each specific audience that you're talking to. You probably have your audiences in different ad groups, and you're speaking to specific type of people there with specific keywords. So put yourself in their shoes. By doing that, you really can understand what's motivating your prospects and hopefully giving you a little bit better understanding of exactly what types of words and phrases you want to use there. Know your unique value proposition. There's probably a competitive advantage to whatever program it is that you're sitting there and trying to get out in front of people. Those are the things that you really want to tie into. And I know we're dealing with just a few words here. You have to be really creative about the way that you're writing here. So focus on that value proposition. Focus on, after you put yourself in that person's shoes, what that is uniquely to that audience. So again, tying it back to the unique audience. And always include a clear call to action. People want to know what you want them to do, right? You don't want to write copy and basically waste your ads without giving them some kind of call to action to come through. A couple other little just detail notes here. Make sure that you're consistent with capitalization. Obviously, make sure that your spelling is good. You have the option to make your display URL pretty much whatever it is that you want. So make sure that people see that and read that and understand what they're going to get, what their expectation is based on that as well. So make sure that that's clear as well. Great question. Sometimes writing the ad copy can be the hardest part. And it might be also the thing that really differentiates between a nice technically set up campaign and one that really converts to one that doesn't. And number 12, what are the best practices for getting the most out of my digital marketing? So this is across the board, right? This is kind of a high-level question. And we come from a background that we really like to focus on measurement. We get as much data as we can so that we can really make good decisions based on the data, not just on some of the assumptions that we might have. So with everything we do, whether it's analytics, whether it's the digital marketing efforts, whether it's SEO, we really want to start with a clear goal in mind that you can measure. So start there. What are you doing this for? What's the point, right? Do your research on the type of campaign and the platform to use. This is something that sometimes you'll start out by trying out some things and looking at that data to see if they work. That's research. It's also looking at industry standards and seeing what's working with some of the things that Haley and Michael have already talked about, and understanding how you can really make an impact there without wasting a bunch of your time, right? You also want to utilize your web analytics. We've talked about how you can connect, especially with AdWords, to analytics directly. It's so phenomenal. It's such a great tool. We actually just did an FIC on this last week, talking about how you can really get all of your information transferred directly through into analytics so that you can see all of the different AdWords components and how those people, once they get to your website, are really interacting with your data. This helps you understand kind of the quality as well as the quantity that's coming through. Does anyone use Google Tag Assistant? It's a great add-on for Chrome that helps you troubleshoot some coding problems. I know a lot of us probably aren't. We come from a marketing background and we aren't really coders, right? But tools like this can help us understand just quickly if we're having any big problems that we need to dig into deeper. So Tag Assistant is a great tool. It's a free download for Chrome. Also, make sure you have unique content from your ad to your landing page. This is important for a lot of reasons, but for the quality score, it's good to have content and keywords and key phrases and ideas that make sense going back and forth between the two. So really, if you want to get the most out of your digital marketing, you're going to want to make sure that those things line up really cleanly. Sometimes that means creating extra landing pages or tweaking a landing page so that it really makes sense with the user experience. Best case scenario, though, is that you have something really targeted to that audience person that looks at the ad. Yes, this ad copy talks to me perfectly, and then I click through and I hit a landing page that, again, is exactly what I'm looking for. So having that good, unique content. All right, so now is the time when we really need your participation. Let's see if we can get some questions in here and look at the ones that we've already had asked so that our panel can address some of the things that you're dealing with in your real day-to-day. You can use either the Q&A box, we have a chat also going, or in Twitter we'll see those as well. So it looks like we've got a couple in here already. Hold on 1 second, we're reading through them.
One question is, can you explain the negative keyword in AdWords again, what it is and how we should use it? Great question. Kind of to touch on that again, what you want to do is you go into keywords in AdWords and you look at, I believe it's under details and looking at all search terms. What that information is showing what keywords or what searches triggered your ads and clicks. You can use that to kind of base, you know, is this a good, I think, keyword to have in there? For example, I've seen searches come in for like fake MBA degrees. Obviously, we don't want to be showing up for that, so we'd want to add fake in as a negative keyword. So just kind of looking at those search queries, seeing if those searches are relevant enough for you, and then kind of implementing a negative keyword list. It's great to get those negative keywords in because then you're not showing up for that irrelevant traffic, so then your click-through rate increases.
Yep, great.
Great. And so I see another question here. Are there any ways in which SEM for higher ed is fundamentally different than other industries? Well, yeah, in the sense that it's a lot more competitive. So higher ed is one of the most competitive verticals in the search marketing kind of world. So costs can be high. You know, again, we talked about the different venues can do the lower cost and different tactics, but costs can be very high. it's also kind of a unique thing when you think about it. It's different than buying a pair of shoes, right? Deciding to go and attend an institute of higher education is a big decision to make. So it's not always one-to-one. I see an ad, I click, I decide to go and get an MBA immediately. No, it's not like buying a pair of shoes like that. So those are some things to keep in mind when you're running campaigns. But other than that, I'm not thinking of any other ways in which it's much different than that. It's competitive, and there's kind of a long thought process to the conversion.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Another question we got, what are consistent challenges for programs such as MBA or other academic programs as they launch a PPC or other digital marketing campaign? I would say the biggest thing is the competition factor. If you're on AdWords and you're advertising an MBA, you're going to see those costs per click be very high. So you kind of have to be aware of that when starting as far as planning out a budget. I would say besides the cost, that I would say having a good landing page to really convert those leads. You want to have the user know exactly what you want them to do once you get to that page. If you're just going to a general program page where a user can kind of wander off, it's really hard to kind of trace what your ads could have done if they only have an option to, request more information. So I think just getting things set up initially right, making sure you have the right tracking, conversion tracking in Google Analytics is kind of the challenges we've seen. It's harder to figure it out as you go rather than getting it set up correctly at the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting that you call out MBA specifically in that one as well. MBA, just in our experience with tons of clients all over the country, everybody wants to advertise for MBA, and it's so competitive. So some of those things that Haley just said are really, really important to kind of differentiate yourself and make sure that you have that full cycle experience for people so that you're actually converting and not just, having people get to your website and get lost.
Well, great. So here's another question. What insights can you provide regarding marketing to prospective undergrads? Are they in fact searching online, and can we reach them via Google AdWords? Absolutely, they're searching online. And there was a recent report by Noel Levitt that came out that said, I think 1/3, the vast majority of people that are looking for a program have clicked on an SEM ad, and that includes undergraduates. So yes, they're looking online. You can download their e-expectations report to see that data. But they are searching online, and you can kind of figure out what the best venue is by thinking, where do young people, where do undergrads spend their time? So maybe a campaign like a Spotify campaign could work really well. Twitter, we can talk with some of these, and then Facebook are good options for reaching that demographic. But yeah, absolutely, they're online. Every statistic talks about that. Okay. Okay, so here's another one. Given that higher ed is so competitive, how much should I be willing to pay for a click? Well, that's a really tough question. Again, it really ranges. See, Google will give you kind of some idea of that Google will give you an idea of that kind of when you're working within the interface. You can kind of see at least what the least amount you need to pay to get on the front page of the search engine results page. So look at that and kind of get an idea. Number one thing you want to do is make sure you have good quality score. You're going to pay less overall per click with that. So, it's hard to give you a great number. I've seen, I think nursing and MBA are really competitive and can be up to like $25 per click. So, just work with what works for you and try to drive those conversions. Try to drive costs down with quality score.
Another question we got, if you see a positive trend related to growth in the number of clicks but conversions are not growing, where do you look to find the reason why conversions are not occurring? Great question. Definitely something we see often. Just because you're getting a lot of clicks doesn't mean doesn't mean they're necessarily quality clicks. I would first look at what keywords are getting the most traffic. If you're using a lot of broad match keywords, I would say really targeting that down to phrase and exact match to make sure that all the traffic coming in is quality traffic, and then really looking at that landing page and analytics. What are they going to once they get to that page? If they're wandering off because you don't have one clear call to action, kind of making a landing page based around requesting information is kind of a great thing to do. But really just, I would say focusing on keywords and your landing page are probably the best ways to go about that.
Excellent. We have a question that just came in on Twitter. Do you have any specific recommendations for marketing to adult undergraduates, that 24+ crowd? Oh, we hear this all the time. So many schools are really looking for growth in that adult market right now, and SEM is one piece of helping to contribute to that and getting people interested from this perspective. I think that really what we're looking for, and we sit down with clients a lot of the time, and it comes down to that ad copy in a lot of cases, where you're really looking at the competitive advantage and the things that are driving that adult market. So it's things like fitting into their lifestyle. Cost is really important to this group. Any of those things that you can fit into that ad copy that really makes them understand that you're going to be easy to work with, that you're going to be able to get them their degree, and they're still going to be able to have a life. I think that's probably the main recommendation that I would have for adult undergraduates. Great questions coming in. We're seeing a lot come in on Twitter. Remember, we've got that hashtag out there, and as well as the Q&A here in the forum.
Okay, and one person's curious about the autocomplete suggestion that we talked about for kind of doing research. Yes, literally just start typing in and seeing what shows up. That will work. I'm sure there are other sites out there that kind of aggregate. I know there's a site, and I can look that up a little bit later, and if we have the email, maybe send it to you. But
we can include it in the follow-up email.
Yeah, we can include it in the follow-up email. That there are other sites that can aggregate that across different search engines. You can get an idea of it. But yeah, that's really a neat way to kind of get ideas.
Another question we just got in: are you seeing less effectiveness with Facebook advertising in higher education target markets? Actually, this is something we've kind of been talking about a lot. We see a lot of traffic, but not necessarily conversions. I think Facebook, from how we've been using it, is better for a brand awareness tool. There are new options with retargeting that we're looking to test out soon. So we think maybe that'll be a good way to get conversions, but overall we've seen it more as just kind of a brand awareness tool, not a lead generating tool.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question in here. It says, I like to advertise on Facebook and Twitter because the user interface for me is easy. What other low-hanging fruit am I missing out on from an easy user interface standpoint, specifically with the ability to target certain DMAs, demographics, and or user list, example, emails to Facebook accounts? So you mentioned a couple of really nice ones there. Facebook and Twitter both have some pretty good advertising options. We see LinkedIn also is a really easy interface. You can either bid based on the number of impressions and the number of clicks that you have there, and it's really easy to understand. We would mention, though, with all of these things, make sure you are tracking on these. There isn't the same kind of connection between Google Analytics and Google AdWords. So make sure you're using campaign tagging when you're advertising on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, those sorts of things, so that you can really understand how that traffic is converting on your website. And then you also mentioned some other, with specific DMAs and demographics. Something that we really encourage people to look at is to think outside of the box really on advertising. Email still is one of the most highly converting forms of digital advertising. Sometimes you can find a niche publication, a niche website out there that offers some kinds of direct email to people, even banner advertising and advertising within those, that maybe aren't going to get picked up with their main normal scan of what you should be doing as far as digital advertising, but could be a huge opportunity. We've seen some really, really successful ones, especially with things like if you have some of those Divinity-type programs or your local business journals, those sorts of things, where those people that you really want your audiences are living and playing and reading and engaging. So think about that audience again and what they're out there doing beyond the big national.
Great. Okay, here's another question. If you were to look at 2 to 3 indicators or metrics to judge your success by, which would they be? I would have to say, yeah, that's a great question. I would have to say click-through rate and conversion rate. That's what I would look at. And again, we talked about how there are no higher ed industry averages, but again, if you're looking at like a 1% click-through rate, you're doing okay. Make sure it doesn't really dip too far below that, then you might want to, you might realize that your targeting with your keywords are off a little bit, or maybe your ad copy needs to be tweaked. Conversion rate can tell you the success often of your landing page. If you're not converting, then maybe you're sending people to pages that don't do a good job closing that quote-unquote sale for you. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Another question, what are long-tail keywords and should I be using them? Long-tail keywords are usually, I would say, at least like 3+ keywords in a phrase, used to kind of really find that quality traffic. Those users searching those long-tail keywords definitely are probably more interested in what you're advertising for than someone just searching, you know, MBA. Typically, I think long-tail keywords used to be a lot more effective, but kind of from our experience, we've seen the search traffic go down from it a lot. Overall, I think it's definitely worth testing out to see if you can get traffic from it. But overall, I think kind of focusing on those regular keywords is probably the best way to go.
Excellent. Sorry. All right, sorry, we're looking at questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Okay. Okay, here's a good question. What is the difference between a many-click conversion and a one-click conversion? That's a really good question. That can be kind of confusing. So, okay, a one-click conversion means that somebody clicked on your ad, converted, and it's done. That's what happened. And keep in mind, I should back up a step here. You put a window of time on how this conversion is tracked. It could be 30 days, it could be 90 days. But bottom line is one-click conversion. It's one click. That conversion counts. Doesn't matter what happens after that. It's done. Many-click is if somebody were to click and convert several times after that, then that's many. So it would count that. So you could have, 3 to 4 conversions counted for one person. So you kind of want to think strategically about which one will work best for you and how you're evaluating your campaign. Often, if you want somebody to just come and take one action and it's done, do the one click. You want somebody to take several different actions, there's like a longer kind of stream of activity you want, maybe many clicks could be okay. Also keep in mind that many click is a lot more buggy as far as reporting, in the sense that if there's reloads, it can count as doubles if there's different errors. I've seen a lot of things skewed kind of incorrectly because of different technical things. So keep that in mind too.
Hey, Michael, that was a great question. Let me ask a follow-up. Could you maybe go one level back on that and just explain what the conversion tracking is in AdWords for us so that everyone's on the same page?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So conversion tracking in AdWords is you place some code on your page that lets your interface know, lets your main dashboard know that the conversion has happened. So you'd often do that on a landing page, the landing page that you would send people to. Actually, you would do it on the thank you page. That would be the result of completing the activity on the landing page. So that feeds that into your dashboard, and you can kind of get a whole bunch of data about those conversions on your dashboard as a result.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Another question we had, how do remarketing ads work? Basically, kind of how essentially they work is people who have visited your website before, display ads would follow them around for other websites that they browse. What you need to do to set that up is add the remarketing tag on your website, create some, really effective display ads, and then once you have that audience list built up, those display ads should start showing to the audience. Again, from our experience, we have seen a great amount of conversions from that because obviously those users are already interested in your program. So kind of following them around during that process where they're kind of still deciding. Obviously, higher education is a much bigger purchase than a pair of shoes, so kind of following them around until they converge is kind of how it works. But we just did an FAC blog video about this where we take you through the steps on how exactly to set this up. So I recommend listening to that if you're definitely wanting to test this out.
Okay, so here's a question. Can you talk about entry fee for effective SEM for LinkedIn? We've heard it is expensive and info on conversions is lacking. Again, great question. I hate keep dodging questions like this, but again, it all depends upon what you're advertising to, who you're advertising to. But here's something about conversions I would say on LinkedIn that might be helpful, is you're going to have a lower click-through rate on it. That's just that's across the board. It's lower than what you get, especially like say on Bing, which can sometimes actually have a fairly high click-through rate. But you're going to have conversions. So people that actually do come to your site tend to be higher quality than a lot of social media, places to advertise. So yeah, entry fee, it's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more, especially than Bing. Bing's going to be cheaper. Google AdWords can vary, but it can be expensive. It's somewhere around there. It's somewhere around AdWords, I would say.
Got another question. What is the standard conversion rate for higher education landing page? We kind of touched on this again. Obviously, it will always depend on the program. You see those lower certificate programs compared to a master's program, you're going to see different conversion rates because there's a higher, I think, time commitment that someone would have to put in. We say anything between 3 and 5% is pretty good, but again, that's going to vary a lot depending on your program, how competitive it is in your area, as well as in general. But yeah, overall, I would say 3 to 5% is pretty good.
It also really depends on what you're counting as a conversion. So sometimes we'll try to collect names and we really just want someone to sign up for an info session. Obviously, it's going to be easier to get people to do that than apply to your school, right? So it depends on what you're using as the call to action. A couple of tips that we've used repeatedly on landing pages to try to up that conversion rate, things like make sure that your landing page copy is really explaining why that program and why that school. So make sure that you're showing those things. People really like to see themselves at your school and try to imagine what it'd be like. So including pictures, photographs of people that look like your students, even better yet, that are your students, right? Using testimonials of people talking about why this program is so great, how this program fit into my life if it's an adult program. And even if it's a brand new program, we've actually even talked about using, and we've used a professor who's getting into that program and explaining why this program is so great. As far as form lengths, this is something that sometimes we see people just collect tons and tons of stuff in the form, and then they wonder why they aren't getting anybody to fill out their form, right? So only collect the stuff you're going to use. That's kind of the rule of thumb. Obviously, shorter is better, but if you're collecting the information, maybe somebody says, yes, we always need phone numbers. If you're not calling those people and you're not following up with them, don't make it an extra, barrier to entry. Make it as simple as possible for people to get through that form. We also recommend having unique landing pages and unique thank you pages so it's easier to track, as well as making sure that you only have one really strong call to action there. It's a lot easier to convince somebody to do the thing that you want them to do if they don't have to pick between 7 different things that you're trying to get them to do.
Okay, here's another question. What does CPM stand for, and when do you use it? Okay, CPM is a payment feature that the abbreviation is cost per mile, but it actually means the cost you pay for 1,000 impressions. So we often talk about this as kind of like the branding payment pricing model on SEM. And it's just a way where you, instead of saying I'm going to pay so much for a click or I'm going to pay so much for a conversion, it's going to say I'm going to pay so much for 1,000 impressions.
That can be confusing because a lot of people think that M stands for million, but it really means 1,000.
Yep.
So that's a good one to make sure that you know the answer to.
All right, keep sending those questions in, everybody. This is great. Lots of good questions here.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's another one. Other than geo-targeting, what would you recommend to reach international prospects? That's a good question. You're going to want to use international search engines. So Google has a lot of options to target international prospects. You can also target by languages. So depending upon who you're targeting. There's also Yandex and Baidu, those are other popular international search engines that I know also have the ability to advertise on. And personally, I haven't done a whole ton of work on those, but there certainly is the possibility for that. It all depends on where you're wanting to target, but that's a good, interesting question.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as you can do to get into the minds of those prospective people in international locations, whether it's doing some interview process ahead of time with some people in that country, really understanding what motivates them. So you can really target your keywords correctly and get your ad copy lined up with what those motivating factors are. So sometimes it is just old-fashioned doing some phone calling to help out there.
All right, any more questions for us? Send them in.
You guys have been fantastic. Thanks for all the great questions so far. Oh, great.
Oh, great question. All right, does the move towards mobility, tablets, phones impact how landing pages should be designed? 1,000% yes. This is one great question. Yeah, okay, so when you have a landing page and you're targeting mobile users, and by the way, here's a little tidbit is the internet is projected to be mostly mobile traffic by the end of 2014. So this is a very relevant question. You want to make sure that you have responsive design, not a separate mobile site. I mean, that's a bridge solution, responsive design. Google favors that, first of all. But you want that landing page to be responsive, and you want everything to appear above the fold. You don't want to have scrolling like on a tablet. You want to have everything right in this little pocket where it immediately happens and everything's there to do right away, simply and easily for the user. And try to keep text maybe a little less heavy on these specifically because people don't have time necessarily to read through that or that it's more cumbersome to do so. But yeah, design it with all the best practices you would put with any sort of mobile website.
You got your thank you pages too there.
Yes.
Follow-up question with that, is the move to mobility highly impacting the industry? Yes, definitely. If you are on Google AdWords, you can actually look at what traffic is coming in from mobile versus desktop, and you'll see that it's a huge percentage. So making those changes, like Michael suggested, is definitely the way to reach those people. And you can also, because mobile is getting so popular, you can also focus your bids to bid more aggressively on those searching on your mobile phone. That's something definitely to implement if you're seeing a lot better conversion rates with mobile.
Okay, great. A bunch of questions coming in. We're reading through them. Sorry about that here.
Okay, there's a follow-up here from something I had said earlier. You said Spotify, Twitter, and Facebook are good ways to reach undergrad. Please explain more. Yeah, that's because the user base kind of skews a little younger. Now, to qualify that, Facebook is turning older now, but I still think there's enough of a young user base that it's worthwhile to look into.
Plus you can target.
Yeah, plus you can target it, especially. But Spotify is fantastic. I think I read a report, I don't remember the exact percentage, but the majority of Spotify users are going to end up being undergrad. Like there's really a great correlation, so it can be a great tool for that. You can have kind of a high cost to entry though, so I do some research on that. And Twitter, of course, that's being increasingly used by that demographic. So it's all about demographics.
Something that's new though with the undergrad market is, and to give those prospective undergrads, is LinkedIn. Just recently this last fall, LinkedIn started university pages, and with that they also opened it up so that 13 and up, 14-year-olds and up can be on LinkedIn, which they never used to be before. So now you've actually got parents that are trying to get their kids to go online when they get home and fill out their resume and get ready to check out school on LinkedIn. So it's a kind of a new emerging market for that as well.
Another question we got, is it possible to have too many ad campaigns that are too specific to certain programs, or is the more the merrier? I would say the general rule of thumb is splitting things out into different campaigns is really more of a budget thing, and then within that, having ad groups typically with 10 to 20 keywords is kind of what you want to focus on. So if it means having 50 ad groups for your keywords, then it means having 50 AdWords for your, keywords. Basically having everything more narrowed down can really help your click-through rate because you're focusing those ads on that specific keyword list. So I don't see any reason why, I think it's definitely possible to have a lot of ad campaigns.
Okay, here's a great question. How can I tell what my competitors are doing? Fantastic question.
Because it's so competitive right now, you're saying.
Well, there's a few different websites out there that you can use for this. And, I haven't tested all of them, but there's a SpyFu I've heard of, is SPYFU, is a way you can spy on competitors' AdWords campaigns, SEM Rush, Espionage, My Ads Advertising. I think there's also PPC Web Spy. Those are all websites you can check out. Some are paid, some are free, some are limited free. Those are kind of sneaky ways to get a upper leg on the competition.
Nobody would want to do that, would they?
No.
We got a Google Analytics question. I'm going to field this one. What are your recommendations for setting specific goals in GA to provide ROI on conversion? This is a great question. This is really what we were talking about when you're tying it through to analytics and understanding how those people coming from ad sources are integrating with your website. It's actually really, really important as well for some of the different platforms that don't necessarily have conversion tracking, like AdWords does, because that might be your only visibility to how successful they really are. So you want to make sure you have good goals set up. A lot of times what we'll do with clients is we'll walk through kind of a mapping exercise where we think about every different audience. So maybe your prospective undergrad students have different goal sets than your prospective adult students. So breaking those out into different audiences and creating views that are separate in Google Analytics for those things, and then going through and understanding for each audience what those goals are. So maybe for undergrad, it's almost always it's apply, it's sign up for a visit, and request information. But perhaps in your adult market, you have a different process that you work them through, and there's an online info session that you're trying to get them to sign up for. So really setting up those goals based on who the people are, breaking them in different views so your conversion rates don't get all wonky in between the two, and then looking at the traffic sources on those goals.
Another question we got, what is the number way to improve paid media efficiency? I would say, from my experience, the number one way to improve that is having someone managing it that knows what they're doing. If you're just starting out and you aren't certified or haven't had experience, you're really kind of playing around with things that you don't maybe necessarily know what you're doing with. It can be very costly, and it takes a while to learn things. So I'd say the number one thing, from my view, is having someone that's experienced. What would you guys say?
Yeah, it's really a full-time thing to be able to be in there and optimizing. I think like Michael mentioned earlier, you really need to be optimizing frequently. So, and this is kind of from someone who's done it both ways. I've worked in companies before where we've actually, I tried to manage them, but it was only maybe, 1/16 of my full-time job. And it's not that you aren't capable of learning it, it's just, man, you've got so much to do. It's really nice to have that extra person to kind of keep an eye on things for you.
And if it's 1/16 of a corporate job for that, just 1/32 of a higher ed job. I come from a higher ed background, and in the marketing department, there's rarely someone who's dedicated completely to this, although there needs to be, because it really requires a full-time eye on it. Otherwise, you're wasting money. That's just kind of the bottom line. Here's another question. Is display just banners? Banners are often a big part of display, but there's a ton more to that. You can have a variety, first of all, of different image sizes and dimensions that go cut across, even some specifically for mobile. You can have rich media, which is like interactive and animation. You can do video even, and you can also do text. So all of these are a part of what is called display advertising. So there's a lot of neat opportunies there.
Yeah, and think about all the different networks too. So we're talking about ad networks, and obviously Google AdWords is one of them, but think about, if you're thinking about display advertising, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes there might be a niche site that really makes a lot of sense, or your local television network that have their own ad networks and serve ads independent of the big guys. So sometimes that's a good way, especially in non-online programs where people are actually on the ground and they need to come to class every day, to target down to a local area.
Another question we got, what are the best resources to learn about paid media? Some blogs I like to kind of follow are WordStream. They put out a lot of good information. PPC Hero, they tweet constantly about different things. Definitely they're tweeting about a lot of the new features on Google AdWords, so I like to use that. Michael, are there any resources you like to use a lot?
I like Search Engine Watch. That's both SEO and SEM.
And Search Engine Land.
Yep.
Yeah.
HubSpot always has good stuff too.
Yeah, they're an expert in landing pages and conversion rates there. So HubSpot always has great information there.
Okay. Okay, here's an interesting question. What are your recommendations to set monetary values for goals in Google Analytics to calculate ROI? So I can start, and maybe I'm sure Becky has some thoughts. Just kind of think about what. Okay, so think about they would come and they would, what the enrollment cost would be for them, how much they're going to pay for a semester's worth, and then kind of calculate on percentage basically what propensity they would have to make that conversion, to actually come and enroll at your school, and work out, like, so say if it's 60%, you know, then do 60% chance that if somebody were to do a request for info that they would come, they would enroll in your school, then make that kind of the next step down in the calculation for it. That's a good way to go about it. I hope that made sense. It was a little convoluted, but
you basically just do some cross multiplication and figure out, you know, that there's a percentage of people who are going to come to your program and actually apply and sign a check to you. So if you can work backwards through that, there are a couple of things you'd be a little bit careful about doing this. Keep in mind as you're setting up the values there that it really is kind of funny money. It's not set up to any CRM system or any kind of e-commerce system, so it's not going to be necessarily 100% real dollars. You're looking at trends, and those trends basically to see how much value a certain page has, or a certain action, or a certain source of traffic. So that's one thing to make sure that you're remembering. The other thing is that if you have multiple goals set up, sometimes if they convert on more than one goal, it can convolute some of that value as well. So like if I went ahead and signed up for a request information, but then also in the same visit I decided I was going to apply, then I'm counting double finances there. So just be a little bit tentative when you're looking at that. It's a great metric to work with, but it's something that you really have to keep your wits about you when you're using, so that you don't end up saying, well, I made you $30 million when maybe that's not 100% true.
Okay, here's another question. Last one, too. So, by the way, thank you. This has been really great. These are really wonderful questions. But here's the last question. What's an ad network? We kind of talked about that, display network, ad network. Basically, all that means is it's a bunch of different websites that bought in to, like, say, Google or maybe Microsoft to be able to have them run advertisements on their website. And so they're part of that whole network. So when you do the display ads, you can target those different sites.
Yep, absolutely. So you guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for all of the questions. If there's anything that comes along that we didn't get to, we're totally willing to take these offline as well. So a couple of useful tools from us. We do white papers. We're actually in the middle of Digital Marketing Month at Converge. So we've got a white paper coming out very shortly that is exactly on this topic. So further information, totally free. We have a blog or a video blog series called Friday After Class that we do every other week on Fridays to really dig into some of these specific questions. And we're always looking for more questions to tackle in Friday After Class. So go check that out and shoot us a note if you've got a question that you want us to tackle there in a little bit more full format with some graphics and information for you. We also blog. Our blog is under a resources tab on our website, so please go check that out. And again, there's a handful of them this month just about digital advertising. And we have a mailing list too, where you can get signed up to get newsletters from us, the workshops that we're doing, and also additional free webinars. One webinar we do have coming up right away is Thursday, February 6th. We had some analytics questions come in on this one, and we're going to follow up even more and go into more depth about Google Analytics and the top 5 things that you need to know. So that will be on February 6th, free webinar. Please go sign up for it. And here's some contact information for you if anything else comes up. If you have more questions, please be in touch with us. Get us on Twitter, come see us on Facebook, or here are our actual real email addresses. If you have a specific question for one of us about something that we've talked about today, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And thank you. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.